When standing on the line between life and death, every decision, every moment has profound meaning. How to find purpose in harsh circumstances. Discover how Stoic thinking helps warriors face life's greatest challenges. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on profound lessons about life and resilience. He watched the sky burn orange, the sound of gunfire echoing like a cruel clock, ticking, reminding, threatening. In war, time doesn't move. It trembles. 4 days he had marched through mud, carried the weight of a rifle, and shared laughter with men who wouldn't live to see another dawn. There, on the edge between life and death, he learned a truth most spend a lifetime avoiding. Nothing is promised. The fragility of life hits hardest when death breathes down your neck. And yet, paradoxically, that's when life becomes the most vivid. Every breath, every heartbeat, every glance at the sky is no longer a habit but a miracle. He once dreamed of money, fame, and titles. Now, he dreams of a warm meal, a letter from home, the sound of silence. The battlefield stripped away all illusions. What mattered was not how much he owned, but how deeply he could feel, how fiercely he could love, and how fully he could live, in spite of fear. That's the gift of facing the edge. It wakes you up. You don't have to wait for war to see it. You only have to look at life like it's not guaranteed. Because it isn't. And when you live like that, really live, even the quiet becomes holy. The bombs fell, but his mind stayed still. Not because he wasn't afraid, but because he had trained for this moment, long before the war ever began. He was a soldier, but also a student of Stoicism. While others cursed the storm, he embraced it. Not with blind acceptance, but with clarity. He knew he couldn't control the chaos outside. But he could control himself, his breath, his choices, his focus. The Stoics taught him that emotions are not enemies but signals. Anger, fear, despair, they come, they go. But they don't have to dictate who you become. He learned to ask, what's in my control? And then to act without complaint, without excuse. When the mission changed, when a friend fell, when the cold cut through his bones, he returned to the core. Accept what is, do what's right, stay steady. That was his armor. Not made of steel but of reason, discipline, perspective. He was not untouched by pain. But he was untouched by panic. And in the quiet after battle, when smoke cleared and silence returned, he didn't crumble. He reflected. He grew stronger. Because in a world that rewards reactivity, he chose mastery. That's what Stoicism offers, not escape from hardship, but the strength to stand inside it, and not flinch. To walk through the fire, and carry the calm with you. He didn't cry when the pain came. Not because it didn't hurt, but because he had given the pain a purpose. Out there in the dust and blood, surrounded by screams and silence, despair was the easy choice. But he chose something harder. He chose meaning. The wound in his leg wasn't just a wound. It was a lesson. The nights without sleep weren't just torment, they were training. Every loss, every bruise, every aching moment became part of something bigger, the making of a man who would not break. Because when you give your suffering a reason, it stops being your enemy. He could have asked, why me? But instead he asked, what can this teach me? He could have cursed the darkness. But instead he lit a flame inside. Stoic wisdom whispered to him, pain is not punishment. It's preparation. For courage. For clarity. For character. And so, he walked through agony with his head held high, not because he enjoyed it but because he understood it. He knew that strength isn't built in comfort. It's carved through struggle. That's how warriors rise. Not by avoiding hardship but by transforming it. When you find meaning in your suffering, fear fades. Despair dissolves. And what's left is power. He wasn't fighting just to survive. He was fighting for something that would outlive him. Each time he stepped onto the battlefield, death stood close. But he didn't flinch, because his purpose stood closer. It wasn't glory that kept him going. It was the thought of his brother back home. His mother's worn hands. The flag stitched into his sleeve. His comrades beside him, breathing the same fear, yet standing firm. He had long accepted that he might never return. But that wasn't what broke him. What would have broken him was if he had fought for nothing. Purpose, that was his shield. Bigger than fear. Stronger than instinct. When the noise of war blurred everything else, that deeper meaning stayed clear. Stoic in spirit, he knew, life isn't measured by its length but by what you live for. A man without a reason to die for, is a man without a reason to live. That's why he stood tall in the fire. Not because he loved danger but because he loved what he was protecting. An ideal. A bond. A truth worth bleeding for. When your why is strong, your how becomes unstoppable. That's the secret of the warrior's courage. He fights not to avoid death, but to honor life. He used to fear the end, until he realized it was never the enemy. Death, the Stoics taught him, is not a curse. It's a companion. Quiet. Inevitable. Honest. In the still moments between battles, when the sky held its breath and the earth felt hollow, he would think of it, not with dread but with acceptance. Because once you stop running from death, you start running toward life. The fear that used to paralyze him began to fade. He no longer chased safety. He chased meaning. He lived each day not as if he were avoiding an ending, but as if he were honoring a beginning, one that could end at any time. That urgency didn't crush him. It freed him. The Stoics gave him this truth: you don't control how long you live, but you control how deeply you do. And so he stopped waiting. He spoke his truth, took the hard road, loved without hesitation, acted with integrity, not because he was promised tomorrow but because he still had today. He wasn't reckless. He was awake, unshackled. Because when you stop fearing death, you stop wasting life. You strip away the noise. You remember what matters. And for the first time, you truly live. Remember, in life full of challenges, mental strength is the key to overcoming all difficulties. Don't let fear or adversity defeat you. Subscribe to the channel and join us on our journey to find meaning and strength from within.